Coming up on the This Week in Cougar Baseball Podcast.
In a way, you almost like when there is some adversity because it gives your players an opportunity to respond. How do we handle it? Like, how do our guys get a breath in? All the training that we've been doing, does it pay off? And so if you look at it the right way, it's an opportunity to go someplace that you're unfamiliar with, where you're uncomfortable, and really focus on the things we talk about, controlling the controllables.
I mean, the vibe's great. We're just obviously very excited to get going. This fall was a little bit different. We didn't get to play anyone else. So I think coming in this year, I think that's extra exciting, just being able to play someone in a different dugout. We've spent the entire fall kind of going against each other. So I think it's going to be really cool to just all be pulling from the same rope.
Alongside the head coach of the Cougars, Nathan Choate, here's Trevor Williams.
All right, well, it's finally game week for Washington State baseball. Exciting to see the Cougars going to be headed on their way down to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. Coach, exciting, and we're going to get to talk to Ryan Skjonsby today, a newly named captain for you guys, and now it's game week, and they're all game weeks now for the rest of the year.
Yeah, excited to be here, excited to start playing baseball and have them count. And so happy to have Ryan with us today. And like you said, a newly named captain, pretty big honor. And so congratulations to him. That's something he earned. But yeah, excited to get going and play baseball.
So we talked earlier in the offseason about, the decision to have captains with this team. When we talk about Ryan specifically, and we're going to bring him in a moment, what led to the decision to add him as a captain on this team?
Yeah, it's more of what he's done than anything. On the pitching side, we have two pitchers, and Gavin's done a really good job kind of leading that group. But Ryan has just embodied everything that a leader does. And, the weight of leadership can be heavy at times. And so I think getting another position player to join Gavin that really understands what we're about, where we're trying to go, where we've been, I think is really, really critical. And he's just earned it. I mean, he just does things the right way. He was a leader anyway. The title is kind of just a title, right? Because he was already leading anyway. He had already earned everybody else's respect. So I don't think anybody was surprised, but I did want to just make it official because I do believe that's something he earned.
I know when we sat and talked with all the coaches, Ryan's name came up multiple times in terms of, we were talking about guys that had good off seasons and what work they put into what they did. How have you seen him grow from the end of last year up until now, getting ready for week one?
Probably my favorite thing, my favorite attribute of his in the area of growth is his energy that he's playing with. I think he's just playing with a different level of energy than he has in the past, and his focus and his concentration, especially on the defensive side and making defense important. And so I think that's just the biggest growth, and I think it's been intentional. He's an older player that's grown a lot, but just his energy that he brings every day and around the team, I think that's probably the most noticeable thing.
Ryan, congratulations on being named a captain. You hear Coach talk about your growth, and when you look back, where do you feel like you've grown the most since setting foot on campus?
Yeah, I think I would agree with him, just the energy piece. I think just being back another year with a lot of familiar faces in the building, I think that's helped a lot. Just getting closer, continuing to get closer with just the guys in the building and then the coaching staff as well. And I think that was one of the bigger things that I kind of worked on coming into the year. And so I'm glad it's been paying off.
I've heard the coaches talk about your dedication in the offseason to kind of lead this team from a physicality standpoint in terms of, you put in a lot of work on your body, as did obviously a lot of guys who are just looking at you guys in the preseason. You're built differently. You guys are even more athletic, stronger. Take me through that process. What led to those decisions, and how did you attack the offseason from a strength and conditioning standpoint?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's got to give a ton of credit to Needham. He does a great job. He obviously knows what he's doing. Everyone loves him as well, not just because he's good at his job, but he's just a good guy in general. So I think everyone could tell you the same thing about that. He's just a great guy, and the programs that he puts together for us is obviously very beneficial. And additionally to that, I think just for me specifically, just working on trying to stretch every day. I think that was kind of a big thing for me, mobility wise. Just trying to continue to keep my legs under me. I think that was a big thing for me, was just working on my hips and stuff like that. to try and just be as flexible as possible. And I think that just helped me with kind of the day-to-day recovery, kind of bouncing back and being able to kind of lift more consistently. I think that's just kind of helped me keep my legs underneath me, especially at first base, needing to play underneath the ball and stuff like that. I just think that's been very beneficial.
Coach, I know we talked a couple months ago about the dedication up and down the roster in terms of the strength and conditioning piece and the motivation you guys have coming off of last year. How have you seen Ryan be one of those guys that's leading that mentality?
Yeah, I think understanding that it's a long season and that you need to take care of your body, and it's one of those pieces that, with experience. Last year was his first full year at the Division I level, and then he went and played in the Northwoods League in the summer, and that's a long stretch of games. And so now when we're trying to say, hey man, you need to get stronger, you need to get more physical, you need to stretch, you need to be in a better place physically. We don't have to do a whole lot of convincing because he experienced it himself, and so he's kind of taking the lead. And then the programming that Jake has done has been great. But I just think that experience of going, hey, I want to be at my best playing late into the season, and I don't want to feel like I'm getting tired and getting worn down. You can tell a young man that until you're blue in the face, but when they experience it firsthand, it's a heck of a lot easier to motivate them the second time around. So I think that's a big part of it.
Ryan, tell me about this team in general right now. Game week, you guys are getting ready to kick off a new year. What's the vibe around the team, the locker room? How do you guys feel heading into 2026?
I mean, the vibe's great. We're just obviously very excited to get going. This fall was a little bit different. We didn't get to play anyone else. So I think coming in this year, I think that's extra exciting. Just being able to play someone in a different dugout and stuff like that. We've spent the entire fall kind of going against each other. So I think it's going to be really cool to just all be pulling from the same rope, and just wearing the same uniform and just all working together. So I'm excited.
What stood out to you going through the preseason scrimmages and everything else in the pitchers that you've been facing at the plate? I know it's an area where you guys have a lot of veteran returners, and then you've also got some exciting newcomers. What's it like facing those guys?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, some of it's not too fun sometimes, especially when Choate over here is, like we talked about, he's pitching a lot, cross-counting me and stuff like that. And when these pitchers are able to throw X amount of pitches, 2-3 different pitches in any count, it's pretty hard as a hitter. So I think, especially from the veteran side of just the pitching staff, them being able to throw multiple pitches in any count that they want makes it a ton harder on us as hitters. So I think that was a big thing that stood out this fall. And then a lot of the newcomers as well, just continuing with that same sort of mindset and just attacking the zone. It's been fun to watch and fun to play defense behind.
Tell me about your guys' approach at the plate as a hitter. I've heard a lot this offseason about winning each individual pitch, and not only that applying to pitchers, but at the plate as well. What does that mantra, that mindset mean to you?
It means a lot, just continuing to try and put pressure on the defense, whether that's a hit by pitch, a walk. There's so many different ways to do it. Just hitting the ball hard, obviously the bunting game as well, dragging, pushing, and all that stuff. And I think just a big thing as well is just continuing to trust the person behind you and in front of you, and realize that you're not doing it alone. You got a full lineup of guys that are capable of plenty of different tools. So just being able to trust the guy in front of you and behind you and so on, and just continuing to pass the baton and just keep wearing down the pitcher and the opposing staff by pitch to pitch, and then also just at bat to at bat with a bunch of different good hitters and people that can do multiple different things. So I think lineup's pretty deep this year, and positionally we're pretty deep as well. So
what's different for you coming into year 2 now after having a year under your belt at Wazoo?
I think the biggest thing for me, and similar to kind of working on my body, I think just really honing in on my routine in general. I think that's just been kind of the biggest thing for me, and just realizing the opportunity that I have and just being grateful each and every day, and just coming out here and doing what I can do, not only during practice, but before practice, just to get mentally and physically prepared, stretching and just realizing what an opportunity it is. I think that's just going to benefit me down the stretch, especially, it's a long season. So try not to get too caught up in results and just worrying about what I can control and specifically like just my routine from a day-to-day basis, I think is most important.
Coach, you get to see the evolution of guys on your team all the time, and just how do you see Ryan this year compared to where he was at 365 days ago?
Yeah, I'm proud of him. He's grown a ton. He'll still face some adversity in the season when there's results, and you go for 3 and you go home and question if you're ever going to get a hit again, and right, all the things that happen during the season. But really, that's why you coach, right? We're all competitive. We all want to win. But when I got into this industry 22 years ago, it was to help young people grow. And so when you see people like him growing, he's now a senior, he gets named a captain. The week that we're playing and opening up, because he's earned that. Pretty proud of him and pretty excited as well.
Ryan, last thing for you, just what's the expectation this year for you and for this team? How do you guys get to where you want to go?
I think just sticking together throughout the long season, continuing to just play our brand of baseball. I think continuing to stick together throughout the whole season would be my biggest thing. Not backing down from adversity, because obviously at some point it's going to come. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a roller coaster, but I would say just staying even keel and not celebrating winning too much, and then not getting too down on the losses throughout the long year. But just continuing to play our brand of baseball, staying in character would be the biggest thing for me. And then lastly, just enjoying it. Like I said, that's kind of a big thing for me this year, is just being grateful for the opportunity. And then we've also talked about, just similar to me, just sticking with the process. So I think especially during the long year, that's going to be big, just continuing to stick to our plan and having fun.
Well, we thank you for the time. Appreciate the candid conversation, and good luck this week against Alabama.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Coach, it is really exciting that you guys are about to be headed to Alabama, chance to take on the Crimson Tide, play against the SEC for a second consecutive year to open the season. Just first, how excited are you to get this going? It's a big week for you guys.
Yeah, a lot goes into it. From the moment the season ended last year, finding ways to get better and improve both our roster and then the players that returned, improving our program. And so, the whole season isn't decided in week 1, but man, if you don't get excited about opening day, there's something wrong with you. You only get so many of them in your life. So yeah, pretty excited.
Talk to me about starting against the SEC. Second straight year, we mentioned that you guys are going to go out and do that. Obviously, a really great baseball league and some very talented competition you get to go against.
If you want to be a program that plays in the postseason, you need to know what it looks like. And Alabama was in a regional last year, a really good program and a really, really good conference. The thing is, with us being a colder weather school and not being outside as much on natural grass, a lot of people say, hey, you should go play someone maybe not as good of opponent. Well, I disagree. I love going into an environment like that. I hope they have a sold-out crowd, because your margin of error is so small, right? They're obviously talented. It's a good program, a successful program, but we can beat them. If we play good baseball, we can beat anybody in the country, but your margin of error is small. So, when you walk a guy at the wrong time on a 4-pitch walk, or hit a guy on a breaking ball, or you don't go ball in dirt, when you don't make a play when you should make a play, those things get exposed, which allow you to grow as a team, right, over the course of the year. And I'd like to see some of those things earlier rather than later. And so that's why we're going into another environment like that.
What excites you most about this challenge that your guys are going to face in terms of having to deal with all of that?
Opportunity. I think opportunity is the number one, word that comes to mind. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity every time you step on the field to earn respect. For people that have been given a second chance in this program or have been doubted. And that's, we kind of rally around guys like that. And so playing a good program and a good team on the road, it's an opportunity to earn respect by how you go about it and how you play, and ultimately to win. And so, like I said, I have the utmost confidence if we play good baseball, we're going to be in the game, and it's about finishing when we're in the game. So, I think we'll stay in character. I'd be more surprised if we don't stay in character, but that's why we're going on the road and playing a really, really quality opponent.
You guys are in a unique spot in terms of the last decade of Cougar baseball. This is the second most returners the team has had, the most that you've had as the head coach here at Washington State. We talked earlier in the season, you mentioned this team is player-led, and that's what you expect good teams to do, is have that kind of leadership. How have you seen that lead to a good fall and then a better spring to get you ready to go here?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is I can push them. And they respond, right? We're not perfect every day in practice, and we're sure as heck not going to be perfect every game. But every time I've challenged them, they've responded the way that you're supposed to respond. They haven't made excuses. They've taken responsibility, and they show up ready to work and improve on the areas that we need to improve on the next day. And so I think that's, that trust. In coaching, I believe two things. If you can prove to players that you care about them, and number two, demonstrate that you know what the heck you're doing, I think you can make some real progress. And it takes time to earn people's respect, right, and develop a relationship with the players. And so I think going into year two, I can push them even harder, but they know ultimately I want them to have success. I want them to enjoy and celebrate winning together, not for me or my coaches, but really for them. And so the ability to be able to push them and them to take criticism and feedback and then have some aptitude. We use that word a lot, aptitude, applying the lessons that are being taught. I've been really pleased with the aptitude of this group.
What's the depth like on this team? It seems like you guys have a lot of really great battles going out there across the board at every position.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 or 5 spots, this week that I really haven't made a decision who's going to play. And it's more of a credit that they're making me make really, really hard decisions. And to be honest with you, the last 2 years, it has not been as challenging to make both pitching decisions and position player decisions. There's 3 or 4 jobs that are going to, kind of won on opening night. But there's 3 or 4 jobs that are wide open still that in practice, guys are fighting to see, hey, who's going to start on opening night? And just because you're starting on opening night, you're going to probably see a little bit of a different lineup on Saturday and Sunday, which is a credit to the depth, where I think if you followed us the last 2 years, when you saw a lineup, that was kind of the lineup unless there was an injury. So I think just the different pieces and the ability of different guys to play in different roles, I think is really going to help us.
Is part of that, even if a guy wins the job night one, you need to see, because the other guys have been so tight in the battle, you need to see what they do when the lights are on and that they're the brightest?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in order for us to go where we want to go, it's going to take everybody. At some point in time, someone's going to be banged up and have an injury. Somebody's going to need a day off on a Tuesday, and we need to win that game because it's a really, really important game, and we're going to need people to step up. And so I don't think just sitting back and playing 9 guys for the first 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden somebody goes down and you're inserting a new player that had 1 at bat. I don't think that's probably the smartest thing. I think it's going to take all 34 guys.
You mentioned 3 or 4 spots that are locks in the field or in the order. You comfortable talking about those guys?
Yeah. I mean, Max Hartman, who's a senior, is going to play right field. I don't think that'll surprise many people. Max is going to hit somewhere in the middle of our lineup. Really, really talented player. I'm pretty surprised we got him back this year, to be honest with you. I thought he would sign, and if he didn't get hurt, I think he would have. Ryan Skjonsby, who played a lot of first base last year, that job is pretty much locked up for now. And then there's some other battles still going on. Who's going to play what spot in the infield, all that kind of stuff. That's still ongoing, and the catching situation is still a battle there.
Tell me about those battles. What's most exciting in those groups right now as you see those guys continue to push one another? Yeah,
it's the nature of competition when you're out there in practice and a guy makes a great play. You don't have to push as hard as a coach. You're just kind of evaluating more because they're going to try to get something, right? Instead of trying not to lose a job, they're trying to go win a job. And so from day to day, evaluating and watching guys trying to win a job. And to be honest with you, they're doing what a player should do. Player's job should make it very, very tough on a manager or head coach to make decisions on who to play on a given day.
On the pitching staff side of things, heading into the weekend, we've talked about your kind of big 3 returning starters with a lot of experience from last year. Is it safe to say those guys are your weekend rotation starting 2026?
Yeah, those guys will start out in some fashion. Probably going to go, we're going to go Luke on Friday. We're going to go Nick on Saturday, and then Griffin on Sunday. So go right, left, right, and then have an idea of what we're going to do in the bullpen, but probably wait to see how the game plays out to touch on that. But I definitely feel more comfortable with our bullpen than I did in the last previous 2 years.
You and I talked earlier in the offseason about the starters and some of the growth that they've had. And You mentioned being able to take some pressure off of them where you felt like maybe you left them in a little longer than you would have liked a year ago. Where else have you seen that group grow?
I think they understand their role more. We had a conversation about this the other day about, I don't think people realize how lonely you feel on the mound. It's a game where it starts when you start your delivery, and it's very much like the quarterback position where you probably get more credit than you deserve, and you sometimes take a little more blame than you should. If a pitcher goes out there and throws 7 innings and strikes out 6 and gives up 2 hits and no runs, he's celebrated, he's player of the game. Well, where did the other 14, 15 outs come from when he was in there? There's a defense behind you, but they don't ever get credit. And so I think shared responsibility and the idea of shared responsibility in pitching and defense and pitching, they're one and the same. We were showing the guys a video the other day. Tabor Fast was throwing, it was an 0-2 breaking ball, and we had a right-handed hitter up, and we were trying to plug the 6-hole with the shortstop. Really good adjustment by our defense and Coach Richards. We kind of hang a breaking ball a little bit, and we get a ground ball to shortstop, and we throw the guy out. And it just shows Tabor didn't have to be perfect because we had our defense aligned the right way, that even though he hung the breaking ball just a little bit, we still get an out on it because the defense was in sync with the pitching of what was being thrown. And so I think them just understanding their job is just this and stick with that process. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do it all yourself. But sometimes when there's a play to be made and you don't make it and you feel like you have to get 4 or 5 outs an inning, the weight of the world is on you, and then you start going, hey, I got to do it myself. And then you start to nibble outside the zone, and then you walk a guy or get behind an account and got a challenge. So this is just long-winded answer, but you know how I feel about pitching. So you ask me a pitching question, you get a long-winded answer.
I don't mind it at all. You mentioned early in the conversation about just that there's going to be a number of pitches that are going to decide these games, and obviously with Alabama being a more than quality opponent, how do you feel your team is working through that mindset of winning each individual pitch, something that we've talked about throughout the offseason? Yeah,
the game's going to probably be, if we play good baseball, and if they play good baseball, the game will be decided on 3 to 5 pitches where you look back and you go, well, if this would have happened, it would have been a different outcome. Unfortunately, you can't do that. Once the game's over, it's over. So I think the biggest question will be when something doesn't go our way, a call, we don't make a play, what happens next? And really, that has been our focus is, can we get to the next pitch and execute? And so I'd love to sit here and tell you it's all ironed out, but you don't ever really know. And that's why I love going into a high-pressure environment like in the SEC, because it's really tested, hey, can you get to the next pitch of that environment where everyone's watching you? You want to win, your adrenaline's going. And so the best answer I can give you is we need to make some mistakes to see how we respond. And that'll kind of tell us where we're at on that.
Taking a look at Alabama and their side of things, they have one of the top players in the country, a guy who's expected to be a top 5 draft pick in Justin LeBron. What do you see from the Crimson Tide when you look at them, up and down the roster? Yeah,
regional team last year. Justin is super athletic, a shortstop that hits the middle of their lineup, hits for power, just a really, really good athlete. Just watching him. And so, there's a reason he's so highly touted and going to be a pretty high pick in the draft this year. And so a really good player that's been around in their program. And so I'm sure he leads and he's a really good player.
What do you expect is going to test your hitters the most from what Alabama could throw out there on the mound?
Yeah, they have 2 guys that are returning, 3 guys with starts under their belt. One guy with 8 starts, the other guy with 6 starts. Tyler Fay had 8 starts and he's returning. But I think probably their Friday guy will be Zane Adams. He had 14 starts for him a year ago. Left-handed pitcher, more of a fastball changeup guy. The breaking ball was a little bit behind last year. But I think that's a guy they thought they were going to lose to the draft, and he returns this year. So I think those 2 guys, both Zane and Tyler, will probably be on the mound. Tyler's like 93 to 95 sinker guy. So yeah, we'll have our hands full. But like I said, I think we're prepared to handle that if we play our style of baseball.
Outside of the obvious wins and losses, how do you measure success in this first week?
Well, the game is measured by wins and losses. So we're going to win. We're not going on vacation, right? We're not just going to hang out down there. So win, first and foremost, and that is the expectation. But from a coaching standpoint of watching how we deal with adversity, like I said, in a way, you almost like when they're is some adversity because it gives your players an opportunity to respond. Weird play, the ball hits the first base bag on a ground ball that should be an out, and it bounces over the first baseman's head, and just things that you can't practice. How do we handle it? Like, how do our guys get a breath in? All the training that we've been doing, does it pay off? And so we're going there to win, but then there's individual battles that you watch inside the game to see, hey, are we making progress?
You have a lot of guys who obviously are making their first trip as Cougs, outside of Pullman, but what's the challenge to start a season in particularly going on the road and playing in a place where you haven't been working all spring?
It's just opportunity. If you look at it the right way, it's an opportunity to go someplace that you're unfamiliar with, where you're uncomfortable, and really focus on the things we talk about, controlling the controllables. You can't control the weather, you can't control the umpire, you can't control the crowd. There's so many things that you can't control, but there are so many things that you can control. And whether it's at Bailey Brayton, or if it's in Alabama, or it's somewhere else on the road, I really want to see our players control the controllables.
Well, Coach, we're really looking forward to watching you guys get this season started. I know there's been a lot of work going in to get this train rolling, and it's going to be fun to see you guys on this new journey this year.
No, I appreciate it, and really excited, and go Cougs.